There we go. Okay, it's on.
Is it on? Well, anyhow, CO was a little pissed at me because of this other mission where he suspected it, and he was right. I threw the bomb away rather than bomb the civilians. But we had this mission up near to Louis Varel, or a little further. Yamashita was now on the retreat, but he was probably the best general they had. He was making us fight for every goddamn foot, that we took. We got up into a little area up in the mountains, and there was a sort of, the mountains all around, there was like a big opening, little terrace and stuff like that. And there was like what they call a hogback in the south, real steep connection going down about, maybe a quarter mile, maybe a little less, but very steep going up. And over the hundreds of years of the people walking up the ridge, it'd be a path 5 foot up to 20 feet, 12 feet, it just as you go up there. There was a little bit of a pasture, nice grassland, with a little bit of a point of about 25 feet, 30 feet, something like that, protruding. Beyond that little meadow was the forest. Now, they loaded us up, 8 of us, with a napalm bomb, a 165-gallon tank of napalm. And we were going to bomb this right at the edge of this path. They had a multiple gun position, 2 multiple guns. With 2 multiple guns, you'd have to have a crew of anywhere from 6 to 9 people, ammunition runners, threaders, holding it, stuff like that. And of course, this one, usually the guns are set up so they don't hit their own people, but they're going down the slope. And our troops can't come up. You can't come up the side because all they do is dump a couple of barrels of petroleum down there, throw a firebomb and cook you. The best way for us to have come in would have been toward this from the mountainside. But if you overshot, the idea would have been if our CO had any brains, he would have had us all drop maybe 100 feet from the gun nest and let the kinetic energy in the fuel run forward. But there's always a chance one would hang up, and as you're pulling away, cook 30 or 40 of your people. Coming in, the same thing, liable to drop prematurely. And anyhow, CO started his bomb run, make a run, and he must have been just a little bit off, because the second guy was out third. And my flight, I was tail end on the second flight, came a little further. Now we gotta go like this here and get back in and aim. And each one is getting further, because if you wanted to get in, you'd be coming up with the guy over here. So you had to follow what he was doing. So not one of them hit the target. Not one of them even came anywhere near. 7 men. 7 fighter pilots, and the goddamn, not one of them even hit anywhere near the target. So I figured, let me see if I can get in. I got in like this, and then by the time, it's too fast, I'm just going to throw the bomb away. So I went over the target and go around, Mosquito, and then drop your bomb. That's what I'm doing. For Christ's sakes, I didn't go up to join up, to go home. So anyhow, I went out, I picked my spot, I came in maybe just a little bit further than he did, dropped down about 20, 30 feet below the ridge, and lined myself up.
Where did the other guys come in, above the ridge?
Well, no, we all came down and came close to it, but I went under, because I had another idea to hit. My idea was to hit 10 to 20 feet under it. if possible. Let that napalm go. The kinetic energy would keep it roiling. It'd go up there and it'd cover that little cape like a wet dish towel, because I wasn't going to miss. At any rate, I'm sitting there and I'm finally getting in. I'm going about 280 miles an hour. You can see the guy is shooting back naturally. But stupid, he's trying to hit the plane. Instead of knowing exactly where you're going, have the two guns just line up and let you fly through the stuff. It doesn't matter whether you hit the bullet or the bullet hits you. But anyhow, I'm coming in, and I just picked my nose up just a little bit, and that's what these guys don't understand. Your bomb is, no matter how fast you're going, your bomb is going to drop 16 feet per second, right? I mean, it's mechanical. It's scientific. That's what's going to happen. But it's going to start from the path that it's traveling. If you're just 2 degrees up, it's still going to drop 16 feet per second, but now it's on an arc. It isn't going to drop like this. It's going to go like this, and you're going to miss your target by 30, 40 feet, maybe 50 feet. And in this particular case, it's going to go the other side of the canyon, and no.
Is that what the other guys did?
That's what, one or the other. They're a friend. Nobody got anywhere near where even the smoke bothered them. So I figured I'm going to come in there and I'm going to judge it, about a second and a half. Because I'm going 280 miles an hour, and I figured you're just going by the seat of your pants. And I raised her up and to pick up my nose just below the top, because that's going to be the arc. If my bomb is going, it isn't going to go over, it's going to be under. Well, anyhow, I went over and I could feel the whump. The bomb hit as I went over, but of course I was up. And I heard somebody go, "Wow." Another guy said, "Bullseye." CO says, "Cut the chatter, line up and let's go home." So by that time, I'm over on one wing and I'm looking down. I can't see. I can't see the little post. It's all flame. I can see the GIs are running up the hill. They're running fast. They want to get there before the flames die away. And if these guys come up with another gun or another, then they're going to have another battle. But anyhow, I didn't. And when I got home, the guy said, "How did you do it?" I said, "Just luck." And the CEO looked at me like to say, "You son of a bitch, don't tell me that other bomb hung up. You threw it away." You know? I mean, that's the only thing I could figure, because when he looked at me, instead of saying, "Al, you made the mission worthwhile," one guy hit the target, and some of our Yanks are going to take that position and they're not going to die. Mm-hmm. But he just looked at me like, I know you did it, you know.
Well, he had it in for you anyway.
Well, yeah, well, we had an agreement to hate each other. But that was that. Mm. But bombing is kind of funny. When I first got to New Guinea, all I ever did was, over here, about 100 yards from there, bomb the trees here, bomb the trees there, patrol, stuff like that, escort. Never got to see a Jap airplane in the sky, never got to see where my bombs were going, what we were doing. But when we moved from Hollandia to Biak, we were getting the hell beat out of us at night, because we didn't have enough long-range planes to do any patrol, to help them out. And the P-40s, we can get up there, drop a bomb or do something, and then just come home. We only had one P-38 squadron in our group. Now they could do a little patrol, but they can't patrol all the time. We didn't have enough P-38s. to spread around to put 3 or 4 squadrons on a rotating basis. So they issued us jungle hammocks and carbines and says, you're going up to Biak. So they had taken maybe a mile and a half or 2 over here, 500 yards over there. We were hitting the coast, and we were just not progressing. So they figured, I figure, jungle hammocks, that means we're going to live out in the open. They'd give us 21-day supply of bully beef, hardtack, and lemon juice. Coffee once a day. Actually, it was coffee just for the pilots, but we threw everything in the pot. Whatever was for the pilots was for the enlisted men too. So we went up there, and they did have our tents set up, but not a mess hall. And I'll forget what happened there, but after about a week or 2 of close support, what they would do is they'd go in, somebody on the ground would spot where the Japs were. We'd use white phosphorus. White phosphorus is, we use just the initials, WP. And so you don't misunderstand with the static and the radio and the combat and the noise. WP could sound like WB, WC, WA. So we got to the point, it's Willie Peter, Alpha Charlie, stuff like that. That's the use of the code. So they had the Willie Peter, which is white phosphorus, which is probably just as dangerous as mustard gas, but we didn't use it for that. We had it because it was relatively slow burning. It was a brilliant white column of smoke. So against the green background of the forest, you had a wonderful marker. So they'd mark it for you and say, okay, you know, hit in the middle or so forth. So we had it, we're slowly getting away. Now we're about 15 or 18 miles this way, and we're about 2 miles that way. I mean, we're making progress. And it's all between 7th and 8th and 9th Squadron. Now we're there all day, and no Jap came near us. No. This particular day, we had a target. There was a little stream, I guess you would call it a tidal stream. During the day, during the low tide, it was a freshwater stream coming down. When there was high tide, it was salt water and stuff like that. Maybe about 10, 15 yards wide at its widest, and probably no more than 5 to 6 feet deep. And we're about a couple of 100 yards to the west of it, and he marked out a target and says, first flight only, just 4 ships, the others hold your bombs. So they went in and bombed the area where he had marked. They come up, he says, okay, he says, second flight, he says, hit target so-and-so. And we waited till he marked it, and then they went in and hit that target. So I'm just coming in behind the number 1, and when you're bombing in the trees and stuff like that, you give the guy in front of you a little extra room, because you don't want to fly and get hit with the branches that he blew into the air. So I'm just about turning on, and he says, number 3, drop your bomb. Number 4, hold your bomb. I have another target. Okay, so I went in, you know, just followed him through. He dropped his bomb, and he said, okay, he says, I'm marking, he says, there's about 40 or 50 Japs out in the open. Now we're about 15, 20 feet away from the little stream, and he lays out his tube, and I come in. Now I came in at about 5 feet over the trees, because now I figure 16 feet per second. If I hit the stick down, bomb is going down a little, and it will go in there. It's a 500-pound bomb, but I don't want to be close. 500-pound bomb, the kill area is is it 15 or 18 yards, 50-foot 50-foot radius or 100-foot diameter. And anything in that area, unless it's protected, is dead. So I figured I'll get in there, drop it, and get the hell out as fast as I can. So I got in there and I just about get it, and the minute I saw the thing hit across the edge of my windshield, I figured that's it. So I dumped the stick, hit the bomb release, yanked back fast. I want to get the hell above that 500-pounder. And again, we both got to the time. I just crossed the line, and I felt the lump, which meant I hit almost dead center of the line. And I'm going up like that. I felt the movement, but I'm going around. And he says, "Look back, Pinky." Pinky was our code name. I turned around, I says, I see a lot of trees. He says, "They're not trees, they're body parts."
Oh my.
I'm coming around and I can see little pink spots turning red in the stream, about 10 or 15 of them. Whoa. And as I crossed over, I can see a wide path, maybe 5 foot, of just red blood running down into the stream. Holy Christ, they just killed 40 or 50 people. You know. When we got home, I mean, none of that Hollywood stuff. Oh, what did I do? I just saw that bully beef, and I got to thinking of the brown skin that I saw when I lived on Paulina Street. When I went, when my brother-in-law Ed was working at the morgue, that's what the bodies looked like. They looked like bully beef. I couldn't eat the bully beef. But it got a little better as you go along. You know. But I think about it from time to time. You know. Not again in that Hollywood stuff, but if we're going to have to answer for all of our deeds, we're going to have to answer for that. You know.
Were they soldiers?
Oh yeah, that's all that was in the island. There was no Jap civilians there. They were all GIs.
Well, you wouldn't be judged. That's war. I mean, it's what you have to do. So it's not like what you want to do. So I wouldn't think
Did
so.
I enjoy do it and kill them just to be a killer, or was I just doing my duty?
I think you're just doing your duty.
Well,
Otherwise, you'd have more excitement, you know, or having,
anyhow.
you know, yeah.
I'm going to have to answer for it. But it got easier. I took out those 8 or 9 guys in that machine gun nest. Like, what else you want me to do? You know? So, but it's a strange thing.
Tell us about the time the bomb was supposedly hung up and you didn't bomb those civilians.
Oh, we went in, and supposedly there was a concentration of Japs in that particular area, and somebody had pinpointed that particular village as where they were hiding. So again, it was an 8-shift formation again, and naturally he put me at tail end, because if there's a machine gunner, he isn't going to catch the first 2 or 3. By the time number 8 comes, he might have the range. So he put me in. At any rate, I didn't care. He was a jackass. But I'm looking, and they hit the village, then they hit something else, and by the time I come around, almost all of the people were out of the village and they were running. And there was a copse of trees about 200 yards across, you know, some flat grassland. And I came down. I didn't like dropping my bomb a lot. I wanted to know where it was going, and if I dropped it into a middle of a group of people. So I came in over the village, and all these people are running out. Well, they're waving and looking. And I'm looking down there. I don't see a uniform, and I see an awful lot of women and children. And the Japs, women and children, were never, ever, ever around where the Japs were. The Filipinos, they'd send the women and children off into the forest somewhere where the Japs couldn't rape them. I mean, it was just that simple. You never saw them. And I said, these are all civilians. I'm not going to kill them. And so I held on to my bomb, and he says, Mosquito, drop your bomb. I said, those are all civilians down there. I said, drop your bomb. I can't turn them down in a combat situation. You know, I'm turning down an order in combat, I can be court-martialed. He says, go around, drop your bomb. Now, I pulled around real fast, and you son of a bitch, you know. Anyhow, I pulled in fast, and now they're about halfway across and straggling, but they're still they're still waving, like saying, hey, you know, it's us. So I came down again, and this time I'm about 5 foot above them, 10 foot above them. I want to look. And I take a look, and I can see they're civilians, and I say, piss on you, I ain't getting it. Now, they're circling in the meanwhile, and now they're circling, and they're behind me, so they can't see. They don't end up, the parallactic view just won't allow them to see what I'm doing. So I went over, and when I got to the edge of the crowd, picked my nose up a little, about 5 degrees, dropped the bomb, and that thing sailed off into the copse of trees about 150 yards ahead of them. Now, I'm just hope that none of them were fast enough to have reached the copse of trees before. And I got around, when I got home, what happened? I said, bomb hung up. Now, one of the other guys had his bomb hang up on the tank because of the size of the tank. You know, it's a big, long tank, 165 gallons. And we had problems all along. If we go out on a mission, it was almost sure that one guy would have a hung-up tank, or it wouldn't fall off until we're on the way home, you know, something like that. So he couldn't say anything. But when I hit that machine gun nest, he looked at me and said, if I could only have the proof. He said, you know, and it was just, I mean, it was just one of those things. And I maintain right today, we went over there to save them, not to just kill them.
Yeah, for sure.
This was in the Philippines?
Yeah, on Luzon. It was during the last days of the war. Like I say, Yamashita was probably the best general they had. And it's a shame they had to put him to death. Because he never let, there were never any reports of the atrocities to the civilians where he was in control. And plus that, he was a tactical genius. He kept us, he made us fight for every goddamn bit of ground that we got in the Philippines. I mean, he did his job, he delayed. Why MacArthur had him killed, I don't know. But, Seligur, is that what that's saying? Finito.
Oh, what about, he told me once about this bombing run you did on a bridge.
Oh, that was up at Formosa. I forgot the name of the city now. That was a group. It was a group mission because it was a heavily fortified area, and of course the bridge was very important to the Japs. It was a pretty big river. At that point, it might have been maybe about a city block wide, maybe larger. I really don't know. And the banks along the river, I'd say, were 30 to 50 feet above the river. And they decided that it would take 4,000 pounders, four 1,000 pounders. That would be 4 P-38s coming in crosswise to bomb the foundations of the bridge. So 7th Squadron got the bombing run, 8th Squadron got the strafing run before the bomb run to try to knock out some of the machine gun nests along the ridge. And the 9th was up at high level to protect the whole bunch of us in case they hit us with Jap fighters. So he had just had a friend of his that was our squadron commander, that was a buddy of his that flew in the Italian theater in his first, combat mission. And the guy had come to visit him the night before. And he was just transferred over here also. And he set up the mission, 4 people going to do the mission. I forget who was in the flight leader and his wingman, and his buddy and me as his buddy's wingman. Now, I never flew with this guy before, and now I'm flying a combat mission with him, and I don't know how this guy flies. I'm sure he's a pilot. He's already got 300 hours in the air in combat overseas. He's probably got 800 hours. He's a decent pilot. Anyhow, we hit the deck, and we're going probably pretty close to 400 miles an hour, about 350. The 8th had gone in there, strafed all along the top of the ridge. What was behind the ridge was unimportant because we were going to be below it anyhow. So they strafed any gun position they saw on the top of it, so we wouldn't be targets down below. So we hit the deck, let's say 375, 350, something like that. Now he kept going down, 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 and normally you fly slightly under a guy, so that if he turns this way, you just drop and get under him, or you just go this way. You're never above him because then you lose him. So I'm in here in position, now he's getting lower and lower and lower, and on the average, maybe a newer pilot wouldn't have been watching the water, would have been just watching where he's flying, and this bastard came all the way down to the water. He came down so close to the water that I had to get up like this because his props are spinning and very near the speed of sound, creating a vacuum, and they're creating 2 water spouts as you go along. So now I'm on top of him, basically, and we're going to turn this way to bomb. Not very good position, but I'm still a little behind him. Suddenly, I'm catching up to him. What the hell is this? I'm catching up to him. He must have throttled back. So I throttled back all the way. I still didn't get back far enough. We finally get to the point where the flight leader turned. We got to turn. We're at the point where we have to go in and release. So he goes in, and I'm on top of him like this. Now he's pulling in tight to make the turn, and we're going to hit here's the bridgehead over here. We're coming in like this, and we have to come, now we can't come under because we didn't turn that far. Actually, we should have come in and made it sharper, so we're like almost paralleling the bridge, and the way we're supposed to drop it, I'm supposed to look at his bomb, see his bomb drop mine at the same time, so you get 2,000 pounds hitting that pier. So we're coming in like this, which is wrong, because now we got to pull away fast, and now you got to get up a 50-foot climb. So I'm on top of them like this here, and I'm thinking, what the hell do I do? So I got to chop throttle. I chop throttle, but we're still going in. Now we're going, but I can see the back of it, and I can see the back of his bomb. So I'm okay there. So the minute I see the bomb go, I hit the bomb, and I start, and he's already starting to turn. So now I'm going with him. And now he's going up. And now all I can see is the front of his nose of his plane. He's under me. And I said, slide over, you're under me. Slide over, you're under me. Now we're going in, we're probably pulling 6 to 7 G's, and I'm uncoordinated. I'm hitting the left rudder, trying to slide left. And a third time I called him, I said, slide over, you're under me. And as we pulled up like this here, we kept coming, boom, I slapped. I went into a spin. Now I'm about 16.
You hit his plane?
No. Oh,
You said you slapped him.
No. I slipped.
Slipped.
You slipped.
And I flipped. And I went into a spin. Now I'm going into a spin. I see a son of a bitch. I'm going to die over here. 1,500 feet. You ain't going to get out of a spin. So the nose turned over like this here, and the first thing I did, put the stick, hit full power. And on my plane, I had the governors off. I can pull 72 inches of mercury, which was redlined, and and get all the power I could. Now, the nose is going down like this here, and boy, that ground came up awful fast. And I'm just waiting for it to let that needle drop to 150 or start climbing 150 to get up to about 160. I started pulling back, and I started pulling back on the thing, and I'm hitting heavy throttle because I want to push. I need to push. And then I finally hit my dive brakes, and the thing started coming around. I don't know how low I went. I must have gone down 100 feet or something like that there. And then I started up. And then I looked for that son of a bitch. And anyhow, I formed up. We formed up.
Did you drop your bomb?
Oh, yeah. The minute I saw his go, it ruined the bomb. Later on, I'll tell you the results of that.
Okay.
Anyhow, we get back to the place, and I can't get out of the plane fast enough. I get out of the plane. They had taken off in the Jeep already. CO and him, they were gone. So I walked to my tent. My tent was the first one beyond the edge of the strip. We had a rec room sort of thing, and then my tent. So usually the first thing to do is take my helmet and take off, take off my gun, my canteen, and my knife, throw it on the desk, and the chow guy says, come on, chow call is almost over. So I left everything on. I got the gun on. I had taken the rag off, which I usually do. I have an oilcloth to keep it on in case I have to go in the water, protect the gun. So I dropped off my I handed him the canteen. I said, drop it in my tent and my helmet. And I walked over to the mess hall. Now he saw me coming into the mess hall. I got the gun. The gun is still on me.
Oh boy, that looked good.
And the knife, and he can see the look on my face.
Gonna shoot you,
And
son
they're
of a...
sitting over facing this way. And I went up the steps, and I see him get up onto the desk, and he's coming over to me. He meets me right at the beginning. He said, I saw what happened. I said, did you saw what that son of a bitch did? And I know this is his buddy.
Oh.
He says, yes. He says, and I told him about it. He said, no, that's enough. He says, let's let it ride here. I'm thinking to myself, and Gorse was our adjutant. He was not a flyer, but a nice guy. He grabbed my arm. He says, come on, Al. He says, let's go have a Coke, or let's go have a drink, or something like that. I said, okay, let's go. And he says, why did you have your gun with you? I said, I didn't even think about it. I says, it just came right from the line. But if I had that guy, I don't care if he's 8 foot tall, I would have climbed all over him. Because the guy Now I realize why the CEO had me fly with him. He knew how this son of a bitch flies,
Oh, oh.
and I think he just wanted me to die there. But at any rate, because he tried it on me a couple of times after, you know.
Oh.
But he must have figured I got 12 lives,
Yeah.
because he tried at least 3 times that I know, and every time I got out, you know, every time I got out of it.
You said you were going to tell us about the bomb.
What happened to the bomb that guy bombed and you bombed? The guy you were talking about.
You said you dropped the bomb
Yeah.
anyway, and you're going to tell us about it later. What happened
What
to the
happened?
bomb?
To the guy you were talking about, that you were flying with.
Oh, I'm talking about a 500-pound bomb I dropped on those 40, 50 people.
Oh.
No, the 1,000-pounder that you dropped when you were following this guy who tried to get you into the drink.
Well, that's the one I just told you.
Oh,
yeah.
We hit the bridge.
Oh.
About 10, 11 years later, I'm selling cars at Courtesy. And in comes this big, lanky guy. He's about 6'4", all legs. And he's got his Japanese, but I guess she was from Formosa.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a Formosan, that's his wife. And she comes up to hear on him.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, real. And he's an iron worker. And I'm selling a car, and we're taking a credit statement. He says, well, you know, he says, I spent a couple of years, he said, I've only on 2 or 3 months on the job, but I said, oh, if you're an iron worker, I says, I understand, just tell me which jobs we're on. And the credit company would take them, because they know iron workers are 2 months on this job, so they all work out of the hall. In other words, there's not an Iron Workers Incorporated, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, maybe, I forgot the steel company that he mentioned. You know, they will have iron workers on there, but they'll be on short jobs too. So he said, but I was in Formosa, and he mentions the town. I says, what were you doing there? He says, we're replacing a bridge from World War II. I said, what was the name of the town? It's the name of the town of the bridge that we had bombed. I said, you ought to thank me for, I use this 3.5 years they were on the job. I says, got to thank me for 3.5 years on the job. He says, why? I says, I'm one of the guys that bombed that goddamn bridge. You know, when he looked at me, and I told him the story. He said, well, we evidently the people there knew the story about it. You know, and the fighter planes came in, they bombed it. And it was you couldn't use it for railroad travel anymore, but we couldn't afford to build it. Was it Republic Steel? It was one of the big steel companies that he worked for. But it was just so surprising. And I said, yes. I said, along the river. I says, was there more damage on the north shore or the south shore? He says, I think it was equal, so we must have done a good job. All 4 of our bombs hit. That's what I was talking about on the bomb. But it's so seldom you get coincidences like that.
Yeah.
That would be about the 3rd coincidence in the war of something that had nothing to do with war, yet we weren't. Like when I was working over there, this one guy came to work for us. His name was Manoia. He was a pilot, but I don't think he got into any combat, but he was in at that time. And he said, I know you've probably heard this 100 times, Al. He says, but I had a buddy of mine, he says, we were classmates. He says, and he went over to the Pacific and he got killed over there. And he says, his name was Seawright. I said, Seawright? I said, kind of a slim guy, about 1 inch taller than me, yeah. Had a little scraggly golden-haired mustache, yeah. His eyes popped open. I said, and there was something else about him, where he came from. He said, that's him. He said, did you? I said, I didn't know him too well, but I took his body out of the water. And he said, well, what happened? He said, I said, we don't know whether we shot him down or whether the ACAC shot him down. I said, but he got killed the day before I landed. They landed there that night. They went up for a mission, and I was real pissed because we were sitting waiting for another plane to pull us in, and I got there the next day. I says, I said he was in there, the water, 2 days. I says, and it was 2 days later, I says, when one of the barges or LSTs come in, and I said, they had a body in it. He says, I got one of your guys here because he's the only guy in our outfit who had on a flight suit. And, you know, the flight suit had the wings here and his name. When I take a look over, it's Seawright. But you don't know it's a human being because he's so bloated, he's almost bursting, and the belt had broken, and it's like a balloon. And his face, you can't even tell it's human. You don't know if he's got eyes or what. So we went to pick him up, and the flesh, you know, squeezed the flesh, and the goddamn gases start coming out. What a horrible. I can sometimes smell it today. Just imagine. So we pulled him out, and that was it. So I told him the story. He says, remarkable, remarkable. You know. Anyhow, 35 years later, I'm working at Royal Lincoln Mercury, and somebody calls on the phone and says, are you guys open? And I said, it's Sunday. I says, and it's snowing like hell. I says, we're going to close. And he says, well, we want to, he says, your voice is familiar. Why? I says, this is Al Moschino. Oh, this is Manoia. He says, hey, stay there. He said, I got to bring this buddy of mine. He said, I've been telling that story. I said, what story? I'd forgotten about it. He comes in. He said, Al, tell him the story. I said, what? He says, about Seawright. And these guys thought he was giving them a line of bullshit. You know, I tell him the story. He says, did you guys know one another before the war? I said, no. I says, I'm kind of sorry, I know him now. But, you know, we got along pretty good. He was a pretty nice guy. But coincidences, I had one like that. It was about a year after the war. We had, well, this was before, during the war, we were coming down. After I come back from being in enemy territory, they found a reason to give me leave time. They were calling off all leaves in Sydney, and were sending down a group transport to pick up, you know, some of the people. And one of the night squadron boys had a lot of time in the transport, so he was the pilot. So it says, you go in as co-pilot, and so I'm going to have a few days down there. Anyhow, we're coming into New Guinea, and I'll tell you what, thank God he was the pilot, not me, because he knew the area much better than me, and he's flying in, it's nighttime, it's raining, and we finally made a nice landing. Our radios had gone out. So we stopped, and we parked in the transient area. Now the rain is coming down and drops as big as this, it seemed. Anyhow, so we're under the ring. There's three enlisted men, 2 enlisted men, and me and Gupton. We're standing under there, and a Jeep comes along. And he looks, he says, guys, you need a lift? I said, yeah, up to the transient area. He says, come on, pile in. So he came in a little close, so we all piled in. And he pulled up under a wing of another plane. He says, you go in here, you go there, the transient there. The guy was real helpful. It was a 2-striper. I think it was a 2-striper. And that was it. And that's the last we saw of him. 2 years later, a year after, I was working, selling these school courses, and I'm coming back from Gary. I'd went in there, ran an ad in Gary and Hammond around that area. And I'm on the way, and I see this GI, the sergeant, is thumbing a ride. So naturally, I pulled over and stopped. jumped in. I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going in, it's just as close to downtown Chicago as you can get. I said, yeah, good. I said, I'll drop you off at Roosevelt and, you know, whatever. Because I lived at 833 Polina, you know, go up to Roosevelt. I said, you know, I said, you, God damn it, I says, but you look familiar. I says, I said, he said, well, I was in something, I forgot what he was in. I said, I was thinking of something else. I said, I was thinking one time when I went through Hollandia. He said, well, I was stationed at Hollandia. I said, you were stationed at Hollandia? What did you do? He worked in this, he had the Jeep, and I says, well, one time we landed, and it was kind of rainy. I said, it was raining cats and dogs that big. And I says, and the guy stopped. He said, and you guys were under the wing. I said, yeah, and there was 4 or 5 of us. I said, and he said, and I took you in and I showed you. I said, yeah, what a coincidence. What a coincidence to get the same. He gave me a lift, now I'm giving him a lift. So naturally I took him all the way up the Roosevelt Road. I mean, I don't let this guy, so I asked him where he was going. He said he was going further, but he had some friends in the Chicago area. But what a coincidence. And to have something like that happen, it's like, you know, somebody comes in and says, oh, you were in the Air Force? My cousin was in there. Did you know him? His name was, you know, 1.5 million people went through the Air Force. But with Manoia, it worked. I know that, you know, it's a one-shot deal, but you know, yep, I do. I carried his body to shore.
Did you must have seen him beforehand, or did you see a photograph that you knew what he looked like?
No, he was in the squadron.
So you didn't
Oh,
know.
you knew him.
Oh, yeah, but he was just in there a short while. You know, you complete a certain period of time, and then you go home, and the others that come in. So there's always new guys moving in, old timers moving out. And I had known him, but not long enough to get, you know, to be really friendly with him. Yeah, I mean, I knew who he was. I mean, we'd sit and had supper together or something like that. But he was not in my little group, or I was not in his little group that meld into other groups as, you know, they grow along. Oh yeah, I knew who he was. I mean, he's not a stranger.
You had that great story about flying that one plane, the new plane, and they went into a dive or something, and that's a great story.
That was P-47. That was...
You were one of the first people to fly it or something?
No. No, it was one of the first models of the P-47. Went into, at that time they call it a compressibility dive, and probably somewhere near the speed of sound. We were told, I think I told you the story before, and I'm going to get into big things, but we were told that even at 40,000 feet, the weight of the plane, the speed and the power, you could not make a split S. A split S is where you're flying at cruising speed, you turn over, pull her all the way through into a half loop, and you wind up going the other way. And the guy told us, he says, don't try it even at 40,000 feet. There ain't enough sky underneath you. Which sounds pretty strong, 5 miles, you know. So we went up this day. I was flying number 2, and it was bad, but it saved 2 lives, I think, because the charger just was delayed. In other words, it wasn't working until you started throttling up, and then you waited until it wound up, and it seemed like you're waiting 2 minutes, then you can feel it moving. Then, of course, you better back off before you got there, because you're going to go in front of it. And so it was one of those things. But I had a good feel for it, and I had a good touch, not like a lot of guys. But the element leader and his wingman they didn't have that skill. I mean, they hadn't developed it, even though they had more time than I did. Oh, at that time, I only had 15, 18 hours in the plane, and that isn't enough to know that type of plane. But anyhow, we did our normal morning patrol. This was when I was based in Hawaii. And then when our patrol was over, he decided just a little hijinks and, just flying. So we went out to sea, and he started climbing. I got to 25, 26, 20. I'd never been over 28,000 at this point. There's nothing for a P-40 to do up there, Get up to 30,000, 32, 34, and I'm thinking, I hope this guy isn't going up to see if this guy's lying about the 40,000, but not. Anyhow, we pass up 35, 36,000, and I think, better check my oxygen. I see like little points of light, and seeing light. And I check the oxygen; it's on 100%. And those are stars. Those are stars I see.
Oh my goodness.
Because it gets a less and less atmosphere, you can
Yeah.
see the stars. I get up to 36, 38. It's kind of dark up there. It's daytime down there, but it's evening up here. And you get to 40,000 feet, and I figured, better not do it, you better not do it. Anyhow, you get up to 41,000, and see 1,000 stars.
Oh wow.
It's nighttime, Then he gets just a little bit above 41,000. I don't know if he went over, he did a pull-up, which thank God he didn't go into straight split S. Did a pull-up, and of course with the damn supercharger, I fell behind. But I didn't want to follow all the way up like this, so I just dropped down and went on the inside. Now he keeps turning. Now we're heading down at maybe 40, 50 degrees, and he's pulling her through. What the hell is going on? And now I'm not looking at the altimeter or the speed indicator. Then we're just about at about a 70 degree angle, and he decides to turn around, straighten out, and thank God. Well, he straightens out, so I straighten up right in position, but I'm still like about 100 feet away, but in right position. Now we're still going down, and it's dawning on me, I'm not pushing the stick down, the planes are going down themselves, then they're going into a vertical dive. I start pulling on the stick, nothing. I said, holy shit. Now, I'm just about coming out of the seat, because a full vertical dive is you're a little this way because your wings are at that 4 or 5 degrees, so you're just going a little bit this way. Now I can just feel myself coming out the belt, and what the hell is going on? The needle is pegged at 550. I don't know how fast we're going, maybe going 600, 650. You figure because the air is thinner, so they give us a 2% margin, 2% per 1,000 feet. So I'm passing 18,000, 16, going down. If it's still reading 18, I'm at 15 because it's at that lag. I figure add 100, now I says, I gotta be going 700 miles an hour. 15,000 feet. I got about 11, 12 seconds left to live. I mean, you can't jump because the air will just, if you just get part way up and cut your head off. I mean, it just slam you back in 700 miles an hour,
Oh wow.
give or take. So now I figured, just let me pull on that thing. So I started pulling back as hard as I could. And I'm thinking, geez, you'll be able to pull the wings off. I said, what the difference? You're gonna be dead in about 10, 12 seconds. And as I pulled her back as far as I could, and I get into that red out stage, and then I stop. Some people go into red out, and then just like that, it goes into blackout.
Oh.
I'm one of the lucky ones. A lot of people do it. But because a couple of times in the cadets, I would time myself and see if I can hold myself on red out. And the best time I could hold it was about 8 or 9 seconds, and then, I thought, a blackout, you're out for maybe a second or two until all that pressure, because all that pressure is off, and you come back, but a second or two, that's 2,000 feet, going about 1,000 foot a second. So I'm starting to pull back, and I'm holding it. Every instinct in your body wants to pull back more, but I didn't. When I first realized it, what I did was try to get some air over my wings. So I hit full power and water injection. I figure a blast of air to get it controls, because you build up the compressibility cushion, and then instead of the air going just over, now they got a cushion like this, and now it's got to go over something like this, and behind here is almost like a vacuum, so you got no control, because you don't have a smooth flow of air. That's why they call it a compressibility dive back then. Anyhow, I could see, the second I did it, I could see the black smoke pop out. I figure he did the same thing. But anyhow, now I'm pulling the damn thing, and I can see them from the water just looking nice and calm. The water's starting to look a little choppy. But I got all that reddish thing, and I'm looking, and now I'm not looking at the altimeter anymore. I don't want to see when it happens. I just want it to be a mistake, and that's it, And I'm pulling, getting down lower and lower and lower, and then the horizon is, coming down like this here, and I want to pull back, but I can't. I want to pull it back, I just can't do it. And I'm just forcing myself to stay right at that level. I must have done beautifully, because it must have lasted 12, 13 seconds, and I didn't black out. And I finally got it, and my nose is finally on the horizon, and I'm getting her up, she's just a little above the horizon. Now I start to look down. I'm still at 550, because it's pegged there, but the altimeter is now going down 300, 250, 200, 150, 125, 100, slowing down. But the kinetic energy is pushing you down like a boat. You're going this way. And I'm going down, even though the nose is starting to point upward. And I'm bringing that thing up a little bit, and don't break it, don't break it, don't break it, And finally it's going 100, 75, shit, 50, 50, 50. 75. Oh, God. Ease up a little on the stick, ease back the throttle, yank her up, do a hammerhead stall, turn around, and he's just forming down. I'd gone a little higher than him. I look up, they're still coming down. And I figured, if they weren't so bad on formation, they would have been right with us. And just like I lagged behind him, they'd have lagged behind me. Both of them would have been dead. So I went back, and again, he didn't wait. But of course, all we had to do was walk across the airstrip and walk across the road, and we were in the camp. And I figured, I'm not going to talk to anybody. I was soaked. So I took off my shorts, took off my outfit, went and took a shower with the brackish water, put on some clean clothes, and I went over to the mess hall, and he was over there, and he just went, I don't want to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it, because you bastard, you almost killed 4 people. But it just went like that. Of course, he's one of the seniors in the outfit, so I could never tell what he was trying to do. He was trying to go into it until he must have looked at his altimeter and at his airspeed indicator and said, I'll never make it. And he pulled out just a little too late. So that was that. But that's pulling back from the edges of eternity.
But you said a guy walked into your showroom one day who worked for the company that made the plane.
Oh, jackass. I'm taking a credit statement and said, well, I'm only on this job for 2 years, but I was Republic Aircraft for 12, 13 years. I said, oh, you were? Yeah, what did you do when you, what, engineering? I said, it's funny. I said, you know, I had one of the first P-47s. When I went into this compressibility dive, Sammy said, well, tell him. I said, well, I went into this compressibility dive, what you called it at the time, and I said, what I did was hit full power, broke the thing, and I said, well, I got some control over the surfaces and was able to just barely pull around. He said, oh, you did the wrong thing, you should have done this. I said, yeah, well, I said, how many hours you got in it? He said, oh, I don't fly. He said, I can't fly. Well, I said, I'll remember then, if I ever get in another P-47, you know, you son of a bitch. I did the wrong thing. I'm alive.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of people in Europe that died in that goddamn airplane. That was the first model. They made corrections, you know, after that. Now, I don't know what the corrections were because I didn't fly it that much more, you know, in the combat. But here's this guy telling me, I was wrong. Yeah. I'm here, Mooch. I'm here, and I'm telling you about it. I don't think I was wrong. Yeah, that was almost like a coincidence. But yeah, he was the officious type. No, you did the wrong thing. You should have done this.
The fist.
And Sam says, was he right? I says, Sam, I'm here talking to you. He said, he was wrong, huh? Well, Sam was not a pilot then, he was in the ground for it. It's a funny thing though, him and another salesman I worked with, Al Palermo at Hub, all 3 of us were at Hollandia at the same time. But we never met one another. Another coincidence, 3 Dagos.
Did you say you got shot down one time? You'd be bailed out for some reason.
I bailed out. I probably, my radios were bad, and I probably took some ground fire and lost a lot of gas. Had to bail out. I'm not telling you any more stories. Shut up.
Oh, come on, just tell us this last one.
Really not much to tell then. We were coming back from a mission, and we split up. Bad clouds. Flight leader Paris, incidentally, he's still alive. I talked to him, and he says, I'll stay above. He says, we're going home. I said, okay. So me and the wingman were on our way home. I spotted Jack down below, go down there. I shot him down. I took some ground fire from a gun position right on because he was right on the deck 5 feet, because when he pulled his wing over like this, I mean, he just went into the water. Like the guy told me, he says, you didn't shoot him down. He says, he hit the water. I said, what's the difference if I killed him with a bullet or I scared him to death? It's a pilot in a plane that's gone.
Yeah.
But I had shot the guy down. And anyhow, we're getting up there, and I can't get through the weather. Now we're coming at the tail end of Luzon, to go to Mindoro. And mountains on both sides. I'm not going to fly into the clouds. And I can't get anybody on my radio. And so I told my wingman, I says, get on and see if you, I says, take the lead, see if you can get the radio. He says, I'll fly your wing. I says, well, see. We come up this stream and it's getting a little narrower, a little bit above us. Trees are overhanging and I hear,
Oh, sounds like Tonto.
goddamn tom-toms.
Yeah,
We
what's
got
going-
some savages here.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah.
And it's so dramatic. Anyhow, we're getting up there and we get into a clearing. They're in the run. They're pounding the rice.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know what visions I had in my mind. But check my 45 to be sure it was working. Yeah. Anyhow, we get in there and he says, oh, we got 2 Japanese citizens. And this one guy said, this guy said, I know Jap. I tell him I know Jap. I Korean. I Korean. He says, I fly same. And the other one says, I fly same plane you. Fly same plane. They had a plane they called a Lightning II. I don't know what. I figured out. And just pass. I don't want to be friends with you. Anyhow, we go away. And they make contact with the base, and they're going to send a cat out to pick me up tomorrow. That night, these 2 guys escaped. I know someone. They paid off the Filipino. The guy figured they might send us back with them as prisoners, and over here we can escape anytime we want. And so they escaped that night. So I figured they're in cahoots with one of the Filipinos. And the next day, Catalina came in. 2 of us got on the plane. It's kind of choppy water. We had about 12 takeoffs and landings. Boom, boom, boom. I figured the 13th or 14th we ain't going to make it. And we finally got off the ground. Everything is wet. I had 3 guns. I had my Luger, a Mauser, and my 40. All 3 of them were rusty by the time I got home. That's what salt water will do. Then I got home, and I got Skino. They had sent all my stuff home, and it never got home. It's still on the way. But I'm sitting there, and my classmate Mather, I emailed his daughter and his granddaughter. We're email friends. He says, Luger, he says, is it loaded? Boom, pulls the trigger.
oh no! Oh no!
I can feel the goddamn air go past my hair, and I turn around, and there's a hole. I said, you son of a bitch. I said, I just come back from combat, and all the shit that I went through, and come back here, my goddamn classmate wants to kill me. Pull the goddamn gun. But
Boy.
then 20 minutes later, we're still friends, you know. But those things happen. And so that was that.
A charmed life.
Yeah.
But that, boom, boom, boom.
It had probably evoked all those Saturday morning serials.
Yeah.
Because you know, they were all like that. You know, you're in the jungle now. Tom-toms are going. The tom-toms are speaking. What are they saying? They're saying, "Go home, gang."
So how long was it from when you had to bail out to when you got back to?
Just about 2 weeks. And then when I got back, because I was taking care of my leg myself, when this guy that came in with the guerrillas, Yank, he had some not penicillin. What the hell is it?
Sulfa? Sulfa?
Sulfa drugs. You had sulfa pills that used for. So I took those, took about 3 or 4 of them because he didn't have too many left. And I just pulverized it as much as I could, 2 of them, and then I kept the other one, for another day. Then when I washed it out with fresh water from the pump, and I sprinkled the sulfa all over it, and I put my handkerchief and just taped it up above, let it hang free, didn't want it. But I just want to cover it up so the flies and the ants and stuff would get it. Then the next day I'd wash the handkerchief out and put that. I think 3 days, I had enough for about 3 days of sulfa. Yeah. But it was fun. It was fun because I came home.
Yes.
But I did meet a Russian, and he said he was just a businessman. I didn't ask him what his business was. He said, I'm a business representative. And later on, when we heard about the Hucks, the communist rebels and stuff like that, I realized what he was up to.
Go.
He was a young guy, nice guy. I'd say, well, he was an older guy then. He must have been 35 or 38, something like that. But I guess they had 1 or 2 guys like him on every island.
Oh.
I thought there was one time that you bailed out and you were on an island by yourself for like 3 days.
No.
Maybe one time I wished I did, but no, it was that was the only time.